So it's that time of year again, or at least for me, it's that time of year that I start planning for next year's homeschool year, which is 2024-2025. So what I do is I start by assessing last year's curriculum, which I've talked a lot about lately on this channel. I will link my videos above. But then I also think about what new situations are coming up next year, because every homeschool year is different, whether it just be the age of your kids or just situations and seasons of life, things like that. And so yes, I could just go to the next level of a lot of curriculum, but the question I ask myself is, should I? So let's just hop into this year's brainstorming session. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back, all the things. And so like I said, we are doing some brainstorming today. There's a few things that I do every year when I start to think about the next year. And I know everybody kind of has different styles on this, but I just wanted to share a bit about how I do it. So the first thing I do is I literally take a piece of paper and I fold it in half because I have 4 kiddos. And that way I can write my child's name, grade, and any kind of subjects I'm thinking about for them, or anything extra that is like, oh, I think this should happen in 5th grade, things like that. I will even look through some of my resources, which I'll link some of the books down below that I use to check some stuff, like what should be happening in 5th grade or 4th grade. And by no means do I like hold myself super tight to that. I think it's just good to educate myself as the main driver of our homeschool. I need to know what's going on. For reference, my kids are going to be in 5th grade, 4th grade, 1st grade, and 1st grade. So those are my kiddos. I'll start with my oldest. So he is going to be 10 and a half come fall. So he is perfect for 5th grade. And now as I was making my list for him, his is actually pretty straightforward. We're sticking with Saxon math. I thought about it. I think it just really works for him. He definitely has some struggles. Math is not his like strong suit. And I think that's why Saxon works well as opposed to some of the other curriculums that are more towards maybe either gifted kids or kids that just get math easily. I feel like Saxon is helpful for him because it has a lot of review and a lot of spiral, as well as a lot of supplemental problems, so we can stop and we can review. So I think Saxon, we're gonna move on to Saxon 6.5. And then as for language arts, so for him, I've made a number of videos on Logic of English. Logic of English just fits his brain. He is not a naturally good speller, and so spelling is a struggle, but the way this program approaches it, it just works. It gives him all the rules. It gives him lots of practice. You go back through the program 3 different times, see my in-depth review if you're at all curious about this program, because it covers his spelling, like I said, but also his grammar and grammar rules, vocab. So it talks a lot about like morphemes or prefixes and suffixes, so you can break down words and understand them. So it definitely hits the vocabulary as well. So those 3 main subjects are Logic of English, and I see no reason why we would change. It took us a while to find it, and he really likes it. So getting his feedback has helped me too, because as a 5th grader, I feel like I get more information from him than say my 1st graders, who I'm gonna kind of lead the show more. And so he has informed me a number of times that he thinks this works really well for him. So we're sticking with that. And then handwriting, we tried handwriting without tears last year. I think we're going back to Danielian. It just works for us. We use a typing program, The Good and the Beautiful, and then the readers. So I'll talk more about the readers when I get to our family subjects, because I'm super excited for this year. And then he kind of has extras of like piano, and he really likes drawing and sketching, so we already have a program for that. So as I was thinking through all of that, that's all pretty set. I don't see a good reason to mix anything up or change that out, if you will. There's one thing on here which I have been talking about recently. It came up in my last video, I believe, where I was talking about how we've changed some of our language arts, and mostly around the subject of composition or writing. And again, this came from my son. He said he didn't really like what we were doing. It was a little too loose for him. He wanted more structure. He's very logical, like I've already mentioned. And so this is where I need your guys' help. 5th grade writing. I mean, I'm looking into IEW, structure and style. We can still start with like 1A or A1, whatever, just kind of start at the beginning of the program. I think he's totally within that age range. I think we could build from there. I'm a little hesitant. This is my hesitation on IEW. And this is only from what I understand and from what I've read and researched, is that it can almost be too structured. Like, not that it takes away creativity, because I think a creative kid could use structure to improve their writing. So it's not even that. I feel like my hesitancy comes from some of like these dress up words. I don't even like that term, you guys. Dress up. I don't want to dress up my writing. I get it. It's like it's forced descriptive words, which I feel like is good because it gets kids to think about the fact that they could use other words to really paint a picture or make their writing come alive to the reader. So I'm not against like descriptive words, but I don't like the idea that it's like almost a part of the program. Like, oh, you didn't use enough ly adverbs and so you don't do as well. It just feels a little rigid. That's what it feels. It feels rigid, but then he is a kid that is asking for more structure. So then it's a question of, is it my personality where I'm kind of chafing against that idea when he could be like a perfect fit for that? And so I need to get out of the way so that he can find a program that will actually give him proper scaffolding for his writing, whether it's more academic writing or creative writing. So I looked at IEW. It's a very high contender. I also have been looking at Write Shop. And I was clued into this, I can't remember what video it was, but it was somebody who uses the Logic of English Essentials, and this is what they use for writing, because really, Logic of English is pretty much everything they need, other than like, oh, you can practice handwriting, you can practice typing, but it's like the core of what they need plus a writing program. And so the fact that this family used Write Shop in conjunction with the Logic of English made it something I'm really curious about. It has such a different feel from IEW. It has a lot more prep, which I can do if it would be a good fit for him. And so it seems a little bit more fun than say like IEW. Oh, so I was looking at Write Shop. I was also looking at, it's a Susan Weisbauer, Writing with Skill. I'm also looking at Writing with Skill because I really respect how Susan Weisbauer handles like the English language, and just I think she does a great job of teaching it. We did a little bit of the early years, and now this is more of like the middle school years where you can start in 5th grade, even though it says I feel like 6th and 7th and 8th might be better for those Writing with Skill programs. So that's another thing that I'm curious about, and all of these are written towards the student. So it's not like I'm teaching those, we're talking 5th grade writing. So it has to be something that he can like take a bit of and go with, and then we can work together, right? I feel like all of these programs have a lot more structure and they're all student-led for the most part, but I also don't quite know, to be honest. So those 3 writing programs are kind of the top research I'm researching right now. So again, let me know down below, 1, what's your thoughts on those 3? Tell me your thoughts. Pros, cons, anything. If there's anything else that I'm just not thinking of, let me know those programs as well. So as for my son, that's really all I'm contemplating, and that's really all that's on the table. Everything else works, makes sense. We are just doing the next level. And then my daughter, okay, my daughter, she's wonderful. She's just totally different. She's a little bit more creative driven. She's a little bit more fun. She doesn't necessarily need structure, but she struggles a little bit with like perfectionism and not knowing what's going on. So I feel like she needs like a medium structure, if you will. And so I just switched her language arts this past January. I made a video, I'll link it. We don't have to go into it all again, but I switched her to the Good and the Beautiful. I feel like she is that kiddo who will excel in that type of a program. And so far so good, but I haven't been doing it that long, so we'll see. So when it comes to her language arts, that is really what gets me, because if we stuck with the Good and the Beautiful, that covers pretty much everything, right? That does cover writing, as well as all the spelling, grammar, phonics, the reading, all the stuff is covered there. I would just need handwriting and typing. That's where I'm at with her, is trying to decide if we're going to stick with the Good and the Beautiful. And this is the area that I feel like I just need more time. I need to spend more time with her using level 3 of the Good and the Beautiful before I decide if I want to go to level 4, because that is also when it shifts to more independent work. And granted, we wouldn't do that until January of 2025 anyway. So we would continue with level 3 up through Christmas for her, irregardless, unless it goes very badly and it just starts to tank, then I'll obviously change. But that's my current plan, so I don't really need to decide this one. Some of the other programs I did consider when I was making this decision for her, like in December, is I was looking at Abeka. You guys, I think Abeka is such a solid language arts program. A couple things that get me. I don't like that Abeka's language or their like grammar and stuff is so tied into their writing program, because I don't like their writing program. Their writing program has, I think, too high of expectations without enough instruction. And so it's very hard for me to kind of take out what I need from that program. But I do like the language aspect. So I thought about doing maybe a combination of Abeka and IEW. So maybe that could be something that could work for her. But then I was also like, there's also Logic of English, which I have the program. I've been copying the pages so I could just use it with her. So that's another kind of structured language with maybe IEW or Right Shop or something like that, as opposed to like math. She's doing fine with math. I'm gonna move her into, it'll be what, Saxon 5-4. That's what her brother's doing this year. She's doing Math 3 currently. And so she'll be going into Saxon 5-4 with Nicole the math lady, which I forgot to mention, that's my plan with my son as well. And I think that'll be just fine. I think her math skills are just progressing and growing. I'm not worried about that. As for my brainstorm session is I don't know. I don't know what to do with her. But I'll come back to her. I feel like not that I've kicked the decision down the road, but I've made a current decision with her and the good and the beautiful, and I won't really need to assess that quite yet. I can make a change if I need to, kind of mid-year next year. My twin boys, are going to be in first grade next year. They're going to be 6.5. And so for them, I have one big thing that I am thinking about. The things I'm not thinking about: first, Danielian handwriting, perfectly great. Abeka phonics, guys, I love Abeka phonics. It's the phonics for my kiddos, at least. They're doing so well with K5. My plan for them though, actually, with the phonics, is because I think Abeka runs ahead. It's advanced, and so I have no need to be quick about it. So when I was going through kind of my curriculum mid-year update, I'll link that video, I noticed that we probably won't finish our K5 program. And so I'll probably draw a bit of it into the summer. I don't think I'll put too much pressure on myself to do that. I just want to keep their skills up. And then I might just finish out K5 first thing in the fall and then start with grade 1, because with my son and Abeka phonics, we only went through the halfway point of grade 2 Abeka phonics. Now the reason is because that's when they really wrap up a lot of the phonics, all the special sounds. And then it really moves more into writing sentences and all these things that I want to use a different writing program. So it just got a little too heavy in the like, here, write all these sentences. And so I already know that I like using phonics up through potentially halfway through grade 2. So what my plan is just to kind of move them slowly through it, is finish out K5, start grade 1, and probably not finish all of grade 1. So that's my phonics thoughts. I don't see a reason to switch at this point. It's really working. And then math. So first grade math. You guys, this is where okay. Here's my issue with first grade math. I have two things I could do. I'm currently using Abeka arithmetic, the one that came with K5, and they're doing really well. They're doing really well with it. They just are doing well with Abeka. And then I have Saxon. I would probably hop into Saxon level 2 because that's pretty equivalent to Abeka grade 1. And so I have those two. I kind of have all of that. My question is what I should do. My problem is I feel like both would be good. I did Saxon 2 with both of my big kids and it worked fine. It's fairly teacher intensive. There's a lot of like morning meetings and all this skip counting and practicing and all this thing, which I'm fine with because we're talking first grade math. I'm very much involved. I don't have expectations of not being involved, but those areas of Saxon are kind of annoying to me. And then when it comes to Abeka, I like the way Abeka teaches. I haven't invested in all of the like charts and flashcards and whatnot. And I am already a person who, if I decide to go that direction, I'll just get their resources. I'm not a person who will just make a bunch of flashcards or kind of make do with what I have. I'd rather have the stuff. I've always been that way, and I know a lot of people could cut costs in that way. I'm just not going to. So my question is, do I want to invest in these resources for just these kiddos? Because I feel like, and this might just be me, it's a hang up of the fact that like, I love investing in resources, especially when I'm like, well, everybody's going to use it. 4 children are going to use these resources. But when it comes to like, I'm buying it just for these 2 and then I won't use them, I don't know why that hangs me up a bit. It makes me feel like I'm being like wasteful with my homeschool budget. But the thing is, you guys, Abeka arithmetic is working for them and they like it. And they like the colorful worksheets. They're doing really well. So I feel like I'm leaning that way. What I do love and what I do know is that Abeka can filter really easily into Saxon. So say if I get up a little bit in Abeka math and I stop liking it, it transitions into Saxon really well. And I do really like Nicole the math lady and using her videos. And so I have that. So it's kind of like even if I went with Abeka this year, I could go to Saxon next year, or I could go to Saxon in 2 years. So it really doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It's just more for me if I want to kind of invest in something. When I do already have the Saxon Math 2 teacher's guide, I would just need the student sheets. And at this point also with my twins, I feel like they're low enough in their academics that I notice some differences in personality, but not nearly enough to give them like separate unique curriculum, if that makes sense. I'm not like, oh, this one would be much better with Abeka and this one would be much better with Saxon, so I'm gonna split them. I'm not there yet. I feel like I've only started to do more of that with my daughter come like 3rd grade-ish, right? And so 1st grade, I'm just keeping them. I had that thought though, I want to put everything on the table during these brainstorm sessions. So my thought was like, okay, do I need to separate them? Is there a reason? And no, there's not. There's not a reason. So they are kind of steady Eddie with their 1st grade. Now that's skill subjects. Okay, now come to like family subjects, which again, in my homeschool means 2 groups, my older kids and my twins. I run 2 different kind of family schools, and it's mostly Sonlight driven because we are a Sonlight family. And so for me, I feel like we're just gonna move to the next level, which for my big kids would be History, Bible, Literature D, as well as Science. Now this, actually, okay, here's something that I'm trying to figure out. It's not a question of if I'm going to use Sonlight Science or not. I love Sonlight Science. I've made a number of videos about it. The question I have is, do I need to start moving my 5th grader into a little bit more independent? And so I could, within the age ranges, I could do D or E science-wise for them. And so I was actually thinking of looking at what was more interesting to them. There's more levels than we can ever do. And I try not to think too far ahead, but at some point I'm probably gonna split up my big kids. It's hard to know. It's hard to know exactly when I do that because my son is more in the middle of the age range for Sonlight and my daughter's always kind of on the lower end. So there's gonna be a point when it probably would be better to separate them. It's not gonna be next year. Next year they're gonna stay together and they're gonna do HBLD together. But science, what I could do, and this is what I'm trying to decide, is I feel like I could do either of those levels, and I think I'm gonna buy extra activity sheets, the science ones, this year. And I'm gonna have my son have his own copy. And potentially my daughter, maybe not, I might still work with my daughter, but I might have my son do some of it himself and potentially even read some of the science himself. So I'm not sure. That's kind of where I want him to gain some of that independence within the structure of our current system. So that's on my mind. So I'm trying to decide between those 2 levels. But HBLD, I'm so excited for it. It's the 1st year of American history, and it's the 1st year where their independent readers link up to the history. And so they're going to be reading a lot of historical fiction that has to do with early America. And they're going to be reading it themselves. We'll be doing read alouds also. So there's another good stack of read aloud books that also are tied more into the history. And that's my excitement. So when it comes to, like I was saying, my kids' independent readers, they're gonna be Sonlight readers. I'm positive my son can do the D readers. My daughter, most likely, maybe not. So we also do have level 4 readers. So I might kind of make a hodgepodge list for her readers for the year. And so that's on my list, is trying to decide science, but HBL's good. And then as for the twins, they're gonna also be doing American history. I'm so jazzed. I mean, you do not have to line up your kids, but I love the idea that everybody's going to be studying American history. So they're going to be doing HBLA, which is Intro to American History, I believe, and then Science A, which the way Sonlight Science orders it, it's kind of a 3-block, almost like a trimester of topics. Like it could be geology and weather, and then an animal unit, and then like physical science or something like that. So it's set up like that, and I do really appreciate that because usually I can't do the whole year of physical science, or they can't. They like the variety. That's the word I'm looking for, variety. Another thing I could use your guys' help with. So since we're doing American history across the board, but especially for my older two, 5th and 4th grade, I want them to study state capitals, states and state capitals. So I want to do something like that. Sonlight has a bit of that, but I'm not sure if it's really a resource that's like, let's memorize these state capitals and things. And so I might be looking for other resources, other programs, or even just a workbook sort of idea that helps them memorize the states and the capitals. So I would love resource ideas on that from all of you, because that's something that I want to tie in this year. I feel like it's an excellent year for that. And then maybe when they do their 2nd year of American history, we might do more of a state history, like a Colorado unit during that 2nd year. But this 1st year of HBLD, I want to do kind of the whole US. But you guys, that's where I'm at. I'm in a good spot, honestly. That's not that many things that I need to kind of problem solve. And so really, I just kind of need to research a little bit more, get some ideas from you guys, and then make some decisions, because I really do like making decisions this time of year, often because there's lots of good sales this time of year. And I also like to get it decided so that I can take my summers off. So I'm not like thinking about this stuff over the summer. So anyway, that's all I have, you guys. I hope you're doing well. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and let me also know, I'd be curious to know if you do kind of a brainstorm session, or are you starting to think of the 2024-2025 school year, which feels like it should be so far away, but it's not. It's just around the corner. So that's all I have. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next homeschool video. All right, guys, take care.